This is a 1988 Case 580 SE, which is a Super E backhoe. It has four-wheel drive. It has a clamshell front bucket. It has 24-inch wide rear bucket, and it's the extended hoe. When I go to dig trenches or anything like that, I understand that in some instances having a narrower bucket would be handy, just a lot less work. But with what I have to do, it's really not cost effective to purchase another bucket because they're not exactly cheap. So let's get this open, and we're going in. So this is the inside of the cab. It has a step up, that's the battery box. Coming in, steering wheel, seat. Those are the rear bucket controls. Those two levers over there are the front bucket controls. This here is the gear selector, emergency brake, and this little lever here is the four-wheel drive. So the brake pedals, they have a lock, so when you push one, they both go down. Or you can remove this, slide this little pin out, and now each brake pedal works independently. So what you could use that for, if you're operating, that would lock one wheel or the other, kind of like a bulldozer, and help you turn one way or the other, versus this, with it engaged, you push it and it stops the wheels like a car would, versus stopping one wheel or the other. And then that over there is the gas pedal, which also can be operated with this lever right here. And then this lever right here is your forward, reverse, neutral selection. So let's climb up into it. Okay. It's been a little while since it ran. Okay, so here is your tachometer with the mileage, the mileage. So here's your tachometer with your hours, your oil temperature, your oil temperature. This is your charging indicator or battery level. Over here we have the fuel level, and then there's the water temperature. So right now this backhoe is showing that it has 7,329 miles on it. Now I know that that's not accurate because when I purchased it, it wasn't working. So I don't know how many hours are on it, and I never will. But when I went through and was fixing everything as I come to them, that was one of the things I got working, because I wanted to be able to know when to do the maintenance on the machine, because unlike a car where it's done by miles, on heavy equipment it's done by hours. So every 100 hours you do certain things, every 500 hours, every 1,000 hours you replace filters, fluids. So it's kind of important to know how many hours the machine has run. So that doesn't matter if it's sitting there idling all day or if it's being used and digging all day. An hour is an hour. So like I said, it's not like a car where you change the oil every 3,000 or 5,000 or 8,000 miles or whatever your particular vehicle specs are. So let's get the backhoe fired up, and we'll run through its paces. Now it's a fairly warm day, so shouldn't have too much problems getting it started. And fired right up. Like I said, so you have the gas pedal down here, and you also have this lever here. So we'll let it warm up for a little bit, and then we'll get going. Alright, so like I said, this lever here, it does the front bucket up, front bucket down, and then moving it left and right makes the bucket tilt. So pulling it back lifts the entire arm up, pushing it forward, lowers the entire arm down, and then moving it left and right makes the bucket curl up so you can lift stuff, or curl down so it dumps out. This lever right here, that one there, opens and closes the clamshell portion of the front bucket. And this button here, on mine it's not functioning. The previous owner, or even before him, somehow the wires got ripped out. So they're ripped out at a point where I can't splice them back together, so I'll have to replace the unit, or possibly be able to take the unit out, tear it apart, and solder new wires in. I haven't found any information on that to see if it's a viable option. But, so what this button's supposed to do is, say you're driving forward to pick up some dirt. So you'd be driving forward, and then the front bucket enters the dirt, but because the steering and they all run on hydraulics, what this button does is it temporarily disengages the transmission in order to give you more power to lift with. And then once you have your material in your bucket, then you can release that button, and then it gives power back to the transmission so that you can then move the material to the location. And then you don't need to push the button while you're dumping because gravity works. When you go to fill your bucket, you're fighting against gravity. So at some point I'd like to fix that. So see, as I pull it back, lifts the bucket up, pull the handle towards the steering wheel, and the bucket closes, push the handle towards the window, the bucket dumps, and then if you can see that slick there, that is the clamshell. So if I lift the bucket up, you can see now that the tip of the bucket is above the top of the bucket. And then if we pull it down, we pull it down, and you can see it closing, and it makes it a scoop bucket. With that open, it helps with grading. It turns the back of the bucket into almost like a bulldozer blade, but it's it's not a bulldozer. It doesn't have the strength or the traction of a bulldozer, but it is used to help with grading and things like that. When you go to use the backhoe portion, you want to have your bucket set on the ground for stability. Then you turn around in the seat. And this particular backhoe has all these levers. So this lever here, you have this outrigger here, so it will raise and lower that outrigger. This lever here will raise and lower that outrigger. This lever here, this shorter one, that is for the extend-a-hoe. This one here is for your boom. This one here is for your dipper. So the boom is the arm that's closest to you. The dipper is the one between the boom and the bucket. And then this one here does your bucket. Hopefully you can see that. And when you go to use the backhoe portion, you want to raise the RPMs. Right now is I'm just working that grease in that I put on top. So when you travel, you're going to want to put the boom in the upright lock position. You look down here, see those two hoses that are a loop, and then right behind it is a little ring. Well, this lever right here, that lifts that arm out there, which when it's in the lock position, that ring sits on that pin, and it will secure the boom when you're driving around on the road, or if you have a long way to travel. If you're moving from one little location to another, you don't really need to do that. You're probably supposed to, but I'll show you in a sec that to put this into lock position, it's not the most gentle thing in the world. So basically what you need to do is you need to pull the boom up quickly, and then just as it gets to the top, you need to push the boom lever forward, which will allow the boom to come back even further, so that locks. So let me show you how that works. And usually, I don't know if it's because of the age of the machine or what, I have to take the outer, take the dipper part, put it up in the air, so that when the whole thing comes, it has the momentum to travel back further. So let me show you how that works. I'll put it in lock position. So as you can see, it just dropped into the lock position. To take it out of the lock position, you have to move the boom so that lever, that eye is a little loose, and then see how moving that handle, it will lift that off of that pin, and then you can then drop the boom back down and start digging. So this lever here, the holes in it, and this lever here, those are foot controls for swinging right and left. That's the operation of the levers. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer it. If you have the glass that you can drop down, when I set it up to be able to drive on the road, I put the bracket on and the bolts stick out into the slot too far, so if I lower the bottom glass, then they hit the bolts, and there's a very large possibility of breaking my glass. And it's not something I really want to pay for, is new glass. So at some point, I'll take that off, and then I'll be able to lower everything down. So let me, now that it's packed up, let me raise the outriggers. Spin back around. Front bucket. Whenever you're traveling too, you want that front bucket as low to the ground as possible. The backhoe is a very tippy machine just because of the way it's built, and it has that giant counterweight off the back with the boom. And so you want to have everything as tight as possible. That's another part of the reasoning when you're going to be traveling any distance. You want to lock that boom up into position so that it doesn't bounce and lift your front wheels up off the ground as you're traveling. This lever here, pull it forward, and down goes reverse, and up is neutral, and then